Deepshika already mentioned about it like a fair bit. So this is about the audience's adolescence, and then my topic that was given to me is existential crisis. So first of all, I want to like define what is existential crisis real quickly, and then I'll go on to talk about how that is relatable to the adolescence, teenager. So the existential crisis is like it sounds like a big term, but it's actually not. So like existential crisis, like meaning you're questioning about your existence. So if you ever like our host just was saying, giving examples about like some of the question that is that were like existential crisis, are like how you ask a question about your life, like what is my life about, like where am I going, such questions. Those are existential questions. It's not crisis, but those are the questions. So I was thinking like how this existential crisis can be relatable to teenager. And I mean, if we think about it, I don't think like, pre-teens and like teens are susceptible to existential crisis, but I would say more like maturing teens are the one who can go through this sort of cases. But that doesn't mean like, preteens and teens cannot have this experience. Obviously, there can be exceptional case. There can be a rare case where they can experience that, like, especially if family background is, like kind of rough, then they can experience such things. But all I have to say, so I think one of the way that teens can experience existential crisis is when they have to make a major decision in life. Let's say like decision like, where like if they are maturing teens are the teens whose age are like 18, 19, and those teens are usually, they're done with their high school, and they're about to be like going to college. Like they're at the stage where they're trying to transition from college, high school to college. So at that age, obviously it is common to have, obviously they're gonna have to wrestle with the idea that like what majors they're going to choose, what career path they're going to choose, so that they can further the education in their life. So when they're faced with that kind of question, obviously it's going to give them, some sort of nerve, and it's going to be challenging. And then I think those are the kind of like, times where you can ask question about like your own existence also. So when you think about it, you're like, so all this time when you're in grade school, like you're like, you got your, you passed your like 8th grade, 9th grade and so on. And now you're like the 12th grade, or like, it's different in Nepal. But regardless, when you're done with high school, then you got to like, make some serious decisions. And when you're having to think like that, all of a sudden, you can, think about it like, okay, so what's my life about? So I'm having to choose a career here. So where is this going to lead me? How is my life going to turn around, like in like 5 or 10 years from now? And such thinking can like, make you question about your own existence also. And I think that is common. So that is what I'm gonna try and tackle here. So first of all, I want to say that like the existential crisis in to ask question about your own existence in a way is not bad thing at all. I think it's actually positive thing. And I would actually say that like you should ask this kind of question. I think not the alternative, the not asking is meaning that you're not being serious in life. So when you're not asking questions like, even though you're like 17, 18, and you're about to go to college, but you're not asking a question like, what am I going to do with my life? How is it going to turn around the next chapter of my life? If you're not asking that kind of question, then that means you're not taking life seriously. I think that is that's what it is. So having this, to have this kind of question, and to, you know, for you to ask question about your own existence is also like, I don't think that's like entirely bad thing. So you should ask that kind of question. So that is one thing that I want to say. So, and then but obviously, since those questions are not easy ones, you know, and you may not have the answers for those questions, because those are not the kind of things that you've already there are chances that you haven't, you know, faced with those kind of questions previously. So what you need to do then is, if you don't have the answer for such question and such concerns, then the absolute good thing for you to do would be to try and seek help. You know, Dipsika was mentioning that like earlier on our lecture, that it is best to go and seek help from like others, like especially the ones who have already gone through that sort of experiences. So let's say a college student, you know, who have graduated high school, obviously, and then doing their college, they would know those experiences. So it only makes sense for you to, as a teen and who's about to transition and go through the same road, to ask such question and get some answers from the college students. So that is one thing you can do. And besides, like, we are in an internet generation, we're which means like there is information, wealth of information everywhere. If we only try and look for it, we can get the information everywhere. So obviously, that is what you should do. You should try and look for the answers, try and find the answers, and in order to augment your life, obviously. So that is the on a positive note, that's what it is. So, but on the flip side, though, on the flip side, existential crisis can be a bad thing. And how can that be a bad thing? Well, it can be a bad thing if we're not careful. If we're not careful when such questions arises in us, you know, like, what is my life about? Like I'm having to choose a career path here. So, like, what if I don't, you know, find a kind of major I like? And what if there is no such major? You know, I think it is common to have that kind of question. And, you know, you may not even like, you know, have to wrestle with question regarding only your education. There might be question you may have regarding your family issues, let's say, you know, so many things, man. So when you are faced with any sort of like concerns and question in life that is like of importance, then and then especially if you're having hard time answering those or try and find a solution, then the good thing for you to do, an absolute good thing for you to do, would be to seek for help. Always seek for help. So obviously, I already mentioned that people who have experience on things that you know, like people who have experiences on the things that you are like concerned about, then obviously those are the people who would be able to answer your question. But not only that, then you can also go by yourself and like read a book. You know, reading a book is absolute best thing. As far as I'm concerned, I always, whenever I like come across any things like, you know, some sort of like question or some vague stuff, I've always found myself like going to the book. And first thing, I have a tendency of reading book, and I love reading book. But I know that like not everyone has that sort of habit. Not everyone likes doing that. But for your sake, man, if you want to find answer, if you want to, you know, discover something so that potentially can augment your life, then that is what you should do. You should try and look for it. And books are an excellent source for you to provide the answer. And there's internet, there's like video instructions like everywhere. So the idea is that like I don't think we are lacking information in our generation. What we lack is the motivation, a drive to seek for help, and in order so that can benefit us. So it is very important that we should look for those. So but if we're not careful with, like, when these sort of concerns comes in our life, then it can potentially have a psychological disorders in you. I mean, I was doing some research and I saw like how it can affect you negatively if you're not careful with existential crisis. It can give you a lot of like psychological disorders. Like there's ton, man, like personality disorders. You can go rogue, man. Like your mental state can be really bad. So it is very important that you are careful and that you seek help, and so that it can benefit you, obviously. So I probably gone like too long, but to end my small lecture here, I want to say that to have a question, like for you to like go face with like question about your own existence and about your life, and like question like what is my life about, like what is the meaning of my life, those sort of questions, they're common, and I would encourage that you should ask that question continually so that you can better your life. So I would definitely encourage and not stop it, but the idea is that you should always seek for help whenever you come across something that you're not sure of, like how to go about it. So that is what it is. So I think that's pretty much it.